So according to China, there are 6 areas around Taiwan where they're conducting live exercises at the moment. And according to Taiwan, they've seen a lot of the Chinese aircraft, fast jet operating out to the west as well. Undoubtedly, this is a bit of sabre rattling, but it's a complex history, Taiwan, which we don't really have time to go into today. Suffice to say, Taiwan is about the size of Wales, but one of the most densely populated countries in the world. It's in the South China Sea, but it's not just about Taiwan. It's 168 little islands that are all part of Taiwan as well. And it's got real military significance because if you can populate islands that are off your shore, you can militarise them and therefore extend your boundaries and your borders, provide greater security for China. Back in 1941, Taiwan was used by the Japanese to launch the attacks on Pearl Harbor, and General MacArthur at the time said it was almost an unsinkable aircraft carrier, such was its strategic importance in the region. It's also, China lacks any deep water ports in the northeast of the South China Sea, so its submarine fleet have to do the last element of their journey to port on the surface, which is clearly not ideal. Whereas Taiwan has some deep water ports, would therefore, if China was to dominate Taiwan, they would be able to have free access into the Pacific and also dominate the whole southern region. Since the Second World War, Taiwan's enjoyed a degree of independence. It's not recognised universally as an independent state, but the people there, it's become democratic, and it's had an economic revolution. And therefore, there's a generation of people, 24 million, I think, of them, that live in the island, that have enjoyed the wealth, the freedom, prosperity that entails. So from a political perspective, there's a really interesting balance here. China wants to assimilate Taiwan back into China, but wants to do it peacefully, but it absolutely does not want to see Taiwan become independent with everything that might involve. And that's why we've seen this US policy of strategic ambiguity over the last few years.
And if there was an attempt by China to seize the island, could Taiwan defend itself easily, or what would be the case there?
Well, from a purely military perspective, this is a David against the Goliath of China. China has a standing army of 2 million. Taiwan has a standing army of less than 10% that size. China has 2,400 modern fast jet aircraft, next generation oozing technology. Taiwan has about 450, and they are very old aeroplanes. And China has the biggest navy in the world, so that would dominate the whole region. So how would Taiwan manage its security? It would look to friends, it would look to allies, and that's why it's cultivated a friendship with the US over the years. The challenge, though, really is, would the US come to its aid should anything happen? And, of course, as has happened with Russia invading Ukraine, NATO's been very clear not to get directly involved, so China will have assessed that. So from a military perspective, looks quite bleak. The one positive is that Taiwan is an island, and therefore any assault would have to be an amphibious assault. If you wind your clock back to the Second World War of Overlord, when we had to liberate France, we only had a gap of 20 miles, not 100 miles, and any invasion force would be really, really vulnerable. So it's a difficult equation from a military perspective.
And what's next? What can we expect to happen in the coming days?
Well, bluntly, the tensions in the region have been around for a long time. And I think what's heightened at the moment is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because China, who's long had ambitions about Taiwan, but wouldn't really have known what the West's response would be, have seen what's happened with Russia going to Ukraine, have seen the fact that America has not got directly intervened, and therefore there is a risk. And let's face it, Ukraine is a sovereign nation, whereas Taiwan is not recognised as such. So and there's no question that China might have felt emboldened in this strategic balance. But China will also be well aware that the 3 pillars of this are military, where they have an advantage, but economic and diplomatic are really interesting. The West has been very unified in its response to its sanctions against Russia. If that was to happen against China, and China does most of its trade, most of its economic wealth comes from its export trade, that would have a devastating effect on China. And likewise, the US will have been concerned that the delicate balance in the region might have been upset by China misinterpreting the actions in Ukraine. So undoubtedly, the rhetoric has been increased from America. They want to make sure that Chinese do not misunderstand, they fully understand the risks. And Nancy Pelosi's visit, whilst provocative, is undoubtedly part of that balancing. And from a military perspective, there's a peace that's existed for 80 years. I can't see any reason at the moment why that peace would get disrupted.
Sean Bell, as always, thanks so much.